Hi, I'm Deanna Kent, author,
And I'm Neil Huson, illustrator
and we've written
and illustrated.
a colorful graphic novel series called Glam Free Racers. And in it, magical creatures and motos race across Glitter Gear Island to try to win the Glam Free Cup.
In these books, the racers don't just have to win, they also have to earn points from special side quests that they do. This book was really fun to make, and it was a challenge too.
Neil is going to show you how to draw the mermaid and monster truck characters. Their names are Mio and Mudwick. They're kind of the leaders of the Glam Free Race crew, and they love to go fast. Neil is also going to show you some comic artist tricks that you can use when you do your own comic creations.
Okay, I'm excited to share with you how to draw Mio from Glam Prix Racers. So, Mio's a mermaid, but she has obviously mermaids have a human kind of head, so let's start there. So, we'll draw her with a head that's an oval shape, so we'll start with that. Just going to move it over a little bit. And I always like to start drawing really lightly because what we're going to do is go back and erase some of the places where we draw over the lines and things like that. So I'll show you what I mean in a little bit. So there's her head, oval. Then I usually put a line down the middle where her nose would be. And I actually don't draw Mia with a nose, so that's kind of interesting. But it helps to help you put the eyes where they should be. And the next thing I do is I draw a line across the middle of the head like that. And that helps me make sure the eyes are level with each other. So from there, we'll just draw the eyes. I like drawing the eyes in the character early because then it makes them seem more alive. So I'm just drawing two ovals for the eyes. And then inside each oval, there's another oval, and that's the pupil. So there we go. Her two eyes, and she's looking at us. We'll just do a little smile on her face. I usually draw this smile so it's bigger on one side than the other. So now let's draw her body before we get too carried away with details for the face. I like to draw all the big shapes first and then go in and do all the details afterwards. So let's just draw her body. So it's kind of a curve like this. Whoop. So that goes down like your chest and down there to the tail. And then the back curve is kind of the same, just a little smaller. And then we'll draw her fins on her tail. So it looks like that. One fin, the top fin, the bottom fin's a little smaller than the top one. So there we go. Now let's draw her arms. So in this case, her arms, she's got one hand on... Actually, let's draw her arms just down by her sides. It might be a little easier for everyone following along. So I like to just do a round shoulder like this. And then she has like, we call them mitt hands. She doesn't really have any fingers that you can see. They're just all the fingers clumped together in a thumb. So there's one arm. Then the other arm's like the same. So you want to make them about the same length. So that's why I drew that little line there. And then we'll put the cuff of her shirt there and just a little line there to show that that's her thumb. So there we go. We've got her body, her head, her eyes, a little smile. So now what I like to do is put the collar on the shirt. I find that really helps with especially Mio. And these are kind of racing collars when we're looking at different racing jackets and things like that. I noticed that a lot of them had these kind of collars. So I thought it'd be fun to use that for our whole racing crew. They've all got this special kind of collar which race car drivers use. So there's a collar, and then we'll put the bottom of her jacket, her racing jacket, down here between her hands. And then one thing all the race jackets have is a zipper, and it's just I just draw it with a black line right down the middle. So there she is. She's got her jacket on. So now let's put her hair and ears on. So I like to draw the ear first, and it's kind of like right in the middle of the eye like this. So just draw it. It's just a little curve, and it goes right to the edge of the face. And the reason I like to draw that first is because then I just hook the hair onto it right like that. So the hair kind of goes behind her ear. And then this part that goes across her forehead connects right on to this part here. So I just draw a little swoop like this. Swoop. And then I draw her bangs. And I like to draw this as one big quick shape because it stays nice and smooth. So sometimes I draw it more than once. And right now I can do an undo because I'm on an iPad. But if you're on pencil, you might want to do it a little more slowly. So I'll do it that way too, just so I'm not cheating. And she has this little curl at the front of her hair. And then I just connect it to the head like that. And then the part behind that big puff of hair at the front is just back here. So I just draw a little arc there. And then her hair is kind of wavy. So the way I draw that going down the left side of her head is I come out the side like this, down here, and then there's a curve kind of around her ear level. And then one trick I like to do, and lots of people do this, is to draw through the character, and I'll show you why in a second. So the hair would go sort of like that. And sometimes if you don't do that, you'll end up drawing the hair up here or, down here. And it just looks funny because your eye follows the line of the hair. And if it doesn't connect up where your brain thinks it should connect up, it feels like it's wrong or there's something wrong with it. So I like to draw the hair going right through the body, and then I just connect it up to the other side like this. So that's the end of her hair. And then I do another little curve like that. And that's her wavy shape hair on that side and on that side. So now she's looking like Mio. She's looking pretty good. One thing we have to do is finish those eyes. So the way that I draw eyes for all the Glam Prix racers is there's a little white spot in the top left corner, like that. And it's just a little oval, and I do it on both eyes. And then at the bottom of the eye, I do a little shape like this, a little curve. And then I fill in between those two shapes with black for the pupil. There we go. So that's looking nice. And one thing that I always add to Mio, which I almost always forgot in book 1, are eyelashes. So the way I do that is just a little tiny triangle on the side of her eye like that. And then I just darken up to the top of her eye. And I stop about right there. And then the same on the other side, just that little black triangle. Then I go up to the top. There, that's looking like Mio. And then usually when I'm finishing it off, her head isn't exactly an oval, but it's when I'm starting to draw her, using an oval is a really great guide. But I usually square off the bottom of her jaw a little bit like this, and then have more of a straight line going up to her hair. And then on this side, I like to draw more of a straight line here. There, that looks exactly like Mio. So I'm just going to darken some of these parts now because we're going to go in and erase all the stuff we don't want. There, now we can go. She's ready to race. Okay, well, I'm really happy you're here to draw with me today. If you have already drawn Mio, now we're going to draw her monster truck, Mudwick. So Mio and Mudwick are from the Opal Ocean in Glam Prix Racers, and that's where they learned how to race. And Mudwick is a monster truck. It's got big tires and kind of a funky body, so we'll draw them from the front. It's a lot easier to learn that way. And then if you want to draw them from other angles, you can look at the book Glam Prix Racers and just get some ideas from there. So for now, let's just draw them from the front. So when I start drawing Mudwick, I always draw his head shape, or his chin really. So it looks something like this. It's all pretty rounded, everything with these characters. They're very round. So it's kind of that sort of shape. And then he has two eyes that stick out the top. They're kind of like frog's eyes. Some people have said he sort of looks like a frog, which I never thought about before, but it's kind of funny seeing what other people think. So that's one. It's not really his eye, it's the part that his eye goes into. So we'll do that one, then we'll do the other side, and then we'll actually put his eyes on so you can see how it all works. So we're just going to draw this shape that's going to be around the outside of his eye. And then just like Mio, his eyes are ovals. So there's one eye, there's the other eye. And then we'll draw the pupils, which just go inside the eyes. So there's one. And the other one over here. There we go. And then at this point I usually like to draw kind of the top of his head. It just is a little curve between the eyes, so it's something like this. There we go. So that's the front of his face. And now we'll draw the tires. And the tires are just big, chunky, round tires. But I kind of draw them a little flatter on the top and bottom. So they're not perfect circles, because tires aren't actually perfect circles when you look at them from the front. From the front, they're more like that kind of thing. When they sit on the ground, they kind of flatten out. So I do the same thing with Mudwick. So his tires are just, they're kind of like rounded squares, I think. That's how I think of them from the front anyway. From different angles, they look different. So there's one. And then we'll just do the matching tire on the other side. I'm just going to rotate it. I find it helps to rotate my drawing when I'm actually sketching, and I do that with paper as well. It helps sometimes if you're doing a tricky angle and it's just not working. Just rotate the paper and try it from another direction, and a lot of times that'll actually fix the problem. Okay, so there we go. We've got his head and the two tires. And now because we're looking at them from the front, you sort of see the inside of the fronts of the tires. So on his tires, they have little hubcaps, and they're actually pink. So I'm going to draw them here. And they just look like little ovals right now. So there we go. So it looks kind of funny, doesn't it? There's nothing actually connecting the tires to his head. And in monster trucks, a lot of times they have shock absorbers, which make it so the car can hit big bumps and it doesn't get bounced around. It actually just rolls over the bumps. So for the shocks, they're just these two little shapes with a little rounded part where they join the tire, and then they connect back up to Mudwick's head. So there's one, and I'll do a matching one on this side. There's two. And I'll add the springs later. A lot of shocks, you can see the springs going around them, and I really like that. I used to race RC cars when I was a kid, and I always thought shocks looked really cool. So that's what I like to do with these ones. So before we get too far, let's put Mudwick's mouth on here because it looks kind of funny without it. So he usually just has a big smile. I try not to draw the smile kind of the same on both sides. I like to angle it a bit so you can see it starts lower on this side and goes up higher on this side. Just gives them a little bit more character. So there we go. And now I usually just draw the tongue in there when his mouth's open, and the tongue is just a little curve like that. There. So now he's got a big smile. He's looking at us. He's got the shocks. Let's start adding some more details, because right now he doesn't really look too much like a car. I mean, he's got tires and stuff. But let's add a steering wheel on here. So the steering wheel goes right in the middle, just meeting the top of his head. So that's the outside edge of the steering wheel. Now we'll do the inside edge. Whoops. Like that. Then I usually draw one or two little cross pieces in the steering wheel. There will usually be a little straight part that comes from the middle out to the edge. And now we'll draw the seat where Mio sits. And this, from the front, it's just a little kind of boxy shape with rounded corners. Looks like that. And then he has two smokestacks that are on each side of the seat. And they come, the first lower part comes up about the same height as the seat. And then there's a part that sits on top that's a little smaller than the bottom part. So we'll just draw the one on this side as well. There we go. There, that's looking like Mudwick. So now one thing we have to do is make the eyes in the Glam Pre-Racer style. So the way we do that is just to draw a little oval here, and that'll be white when we color it. And it's always in the top left. And then there's a rounded shape at the bottom and on both sides. And that's actually where the light goes through your pupil and comes out the bottom side, or that's what it's supposed to look like. There, that's looking like Mudwick. Now one thing we have to do is add the springs to the shocks. So the springs actually wrap around these parts. So the way I do that is I draw one shape that's inside the shock. It's just a little curve like this. Actually, I'll start this one down lower. So it's like this. So that's the part where the top of the shock touches the shock casing. And then I draw another one like this that kind of goes around that shape. So we'll just do that one here. We'll do another one down here. I'm trying to be careful not to have lines touching, like this line hitting exactly this line, things like that. We'll just do 3 for now, and I'll do a matching set on the other side. So there's my inside curve, outside curve, inside curve, outside curve, and then the last one, inside curve, outside curve. So you can see I'm just drawing over top of lines, and I've got the tire lines going through the shocks and all that kind of stuff. And that's okay, because when we're sketching, we always draw light so that we can go back and erase those things afterwards. So there we go. There's Mudwick. Mudwick the monster truck, and you can see how he looks with Mio sitting there too. So that's Mio and Mudwick, the racing team from the Opal Ocean, and I hope you enjoyed drawing with me. If you're into drawing, you can use these sorts of tricks to really make your drawings a little bit extra special. So the first one we'll do is called tilting the camera, and let's take a look at what that means. So say we're going to have a drawing of a car racing along a track towards us. So here's the track, just a straight line. We'll do 2 examples, one with the camera tilted and one without. So we'll start with the without one. So here's the car, it's coming towards us. We'll draw the tires. Maybe the tires are turning a little bit to make it a little bit more exciting. We'll put some eyes on it like in Glam Pre. This isn't an actual character, but it's kind of like Mudwick, but if he had tiny tires. And we'll put a driver in there, and we'll put the hair up. So there's our car driving towards us. It's not bad. I mean, it doesn't really feel too exciting, so maybe we could try some stuff like putting some speed lines in. You know, that helps for sure. That's making it feel like the car is really coming towards us. But I mean, that's about all you can do if you want to have this exact kind of look with the car driving towards us. So let's try an example now where we tilt the camera to make it feel really dynamic. And what this does is it kind of, you're not used to seeing the world this way, so you're kind of adjusting the whole world for people to look at, and it makes you feel a little bit off balance. And that's actually what you want when you're making an action scene like this. And you see this kind of trick in movies a lot, where they'll tilt the camera, like if there are planes flying by or cars whipping by, a car chase, things like that. They do that all the time. And see, already I've tilted the world a bit, just artificially, and the road's tilted, the car's tilted. Already that feels really good. Like it feels like that car is really moving quick and it's exciting. And then if we put those speed lines on there, that just makes it even more exciting. So here are a few examples from Glam Pre-Racers that show a tilted camera. All right, the next comic book trick we're going to look at is what we call a burst background, and I usually use it behind a character when I really want to highlight that character and show that they're realizing something or they're saying something exciting. So let's start just by drawing a character, and we'll show an example without a burst background and then with, and it'll show really how just having that change really adds a lot to it. So Let's draw Uni for a change. Whoops. Forgot to turn my layer on. Here we go. So here's Uni. I'll draw him really quickly. He won't look exactly perfect, but pretty close. Because I feel like Uni's always realizing something or saying something exciting to try to rally the team. So here he is. Then I'll just put his hand up like he's raising his hand in class almost. He's like, hey, I've got an idea. I made his horn too small. We'll just have it come out the panel. Doesn't really matter. Okay, so there's Uni, and he's saying something. We don't know what it is, but it's like something fun. And what I'll do is I'll just copy it over to the other panel. And what I do is I just put a burst behind Uni or any character. And it's sort of like you're imitating that thing you've probably seen in comics where there's a light bulb that goes off when someone has an idea. So it's the same kind of thing here. I just like to use it to really focus in on the character, because in comics you're drawing, you've got all these scenes with backgrounds and things like that. And you could do that. I mean, you could have a background behind Uni, maybe. But it really doesn't have that energy or just show like that moment where he realizes something or he's got something really exciting to say, like this one over here. The burst really helps a lot to really focus in on that character, show that they're coming up with a cool idea or they just realized something surprising. And it's a nice way of really using different colors for different characters. You can really punch up those moments and really sell that they're thinking of something really cool or saying something really cool. So that's comic book trick number 2, the burst background. And here are some examples from Glam Prix Racers. Okay, the third comic book art trick we're going to talk about right now is how to really show that a character is powerful in relationship to another character. And because comics are 2D, you have to use things like their height within a panel to make them feel more powerful than another character. So I use this a lot with V-Best in Glam Prix Racers because he's so small. Like, he's one of the smallest characters in the whole book, but he's really the boss of the robots, the Vroombots. So I have to use some tricks to make him look taller or bigger in the panel than the other characters. So I'm going to show 2 examples. I'll show one that's kind of literally his size compared to the other ones. And then I'll do one where I put him really close to the camera so he looks bigger than the other 2 Vroombots, but he actually isn't. But it really makes him feel more powerful than the other 2. So let's just do one here. I'm just going to draw some boxes pretty much for these guys. So here's V-Best. He always likes to stick out his arm when he's talking a lot. He gets very upset a lot, but that's about his size. And then V-Buff is quite big in comparison. He's about that big. And then V-Beat is about the same size as V-Buff, or height-wise anyway. He's just got extremely long legs. So that's about the height of those guys. So, V-Best is giving them orders. It doesn't really feel like he's the boss here because he's so little. I actually made him a little bigger than he normally is. He should actually be smaller than that. So to make him feel really powerful, and especially if you want to make the other Vroombots feel a little bit scared of him or something, or like, he's really being super excited and they're kind of like, wow, what you do is you actually put him in front of the camera so he's really big like this. But he's not actually that big. He's just really close to the camera and where we're seeing him from. So he could be that big and pointing at his other Vroombots like this, and then you just draw them like they're in the background, and maybe they're leaning back like, holy, what's he saying? This is, he's really upset. So you just have to play with who's close to the camera, who's far from the camera. So there's our two other Vroombots, and there's V-Best, and he's threatening to turn off V-Beat's chicken dance abilities. But because within this panel, like, he's taking up this much space, and these other two are just taking up this much space, he feels more powerful. So it's a nice way of doing this where you can really make someone feel bigger, or like really amplify what they're saying or what they're doing by putting them nice and close to the camera and having everyone else pretty small in relation to them. And one other trick that I did here that is kind of like a bonus trick is that you can use things like, see how the edge of his head, it kind of points down towards these other two characters, so it's making your eye go right to these guys. So you're seeing V-Best, and then your eye's going down here. So it's just a little bit of an art trick to use lines in the art to point the eye at different things. So that's the bonus trick. But now we'll show you a couple examples of places where we use this trick of making characters extra big in a frame to make them feel like they're more powerful. Thank you for looking at these comic art tricks with me today. I hope you learned some cool new things you can incorporate into your own drawings, and good luck, and thanks for drawing.